He was born on March 3rd, 1934, in St. Paul, Minnesota. He lived in Minnesota for 13 years and moved to San Bernardino his freshman year. His family was not very wealthy while growing up, so he began working at a very young age. From ages 9 to 12, he sold newspapers, and then when he was older, he got his own paper route. He went back to Minnesota and Wisconsin over the summers to farm as a summer job.
He attended San Bernardino High School and graduated in 1951. He played on the baseball team and was the center fielder.
June 25, 1950, was the beginning of a very large conflict. This was the start of the Korean War, also known as the Forgotten War. This was a conflict between communist and non-communist groups in Korea. This conflict occurred because when World War II ended, Korea was split at the 38th parallel. It was divided into North Korea and South Korea. In 1948, the two different governments were proclaimed.
The North was the People's Republic of Korea, or the Communist. The South was the Republic of Korea, or the Non-Communist. Due to the opposing governments, North Korea invaded South Korea on June 25, 1950. After years of fighting, a peace treaty was signed which left Korea divided the way it was before the war.
America's Navy, a global force for good.
The United States Navy is one of the 7 branches of the U.S. Armed Forces. Don Noyes decided to join the Navy because the Army was never an interest of his. He had never before been on a ship, so the Navy sounded pretty appealing.
He joined the Navy in 1951 and remained in the service until 1955. Boot camp was a very large part of being in the service.
It was very, very strict. Of course, march, you do physical calisthenics, you had to study naval history, you had to learn all of the nomenclature of ships.
Your clothing always had to be spotless, and the consequences were very harsh.
The submarine service of the U.S. Navy is a very small unit and is often overlooked. Submarines are used for many important duties. They are mainly used for peacetime engagements, special operations, precision strikes, surveillance, and intelligence.
You got to sort of choose what field you might like to go in, and so I said, well, for some reason I got interested in submarines. So I said, well, I'll volunteer for submarine service, and I was accepted. And they give you 3 days of extensive psychological and physical testing, because obviously you're in very confined quarters, and they want no signs of claustrophobia, or anything like that. So.
He was on the USS Pickerel SS-524. They shipped out of Pearl Harbor and came in and out daily. They also occasionally went on 30-day shipouts. The ships had a very small number of men.
We ran between, I would say, anywhere from 72 and a maximum of 80. We would go over and operate out of Yokosuka, Japan, and we did that for 6 months, and we would go out 30 days at a time, and then we would operate off the coast of North Korea during the Korean War. And then once our 6-month tour was there, then we would come back to Pearl Harbor.
For these longer trips, they would often have to store food everywhere throughout the submarine.
They store food everywhere. They'll have loaves of bread stuffed in in amongst the pipes. We would store coffee and flour in tins about this square outboard of our engines. Here's the bad thing about it. Through osmosis, some of the diesel oil would actually some way get through the metal cans and actually would ruin some of the flour or coffee. The most interesting thing our submarine did during the Korean War, we would actually get off the coast of North Korea. We'd go in underwater, submerged, and then we would surface around midnight. And we had, does the term UDT men mean anything? How about Navy SEALs?
Yes.
Okay, the UDT men predated the SEALs. They were known as frogmen also. And we would surface at midnight and we would unload these UDT men. They had their black rubber rafts, just honest to goodness, just like in the movies, all in black. And as soon as they got into boats and left, we would submerge, and then we'd get out of there, and 24 hours later, in a minute, we would come back to the exact same spot, the same longitude and latitude. We would surface just enough at midnight again, and pick them up, and off we go. We'd submerge right away and get out of there. When you're out at sea, the Navy hierarchy, they're going to send you out orders. They send them out in, sealed envelope, packet, Well, in this particular case, the submarine, and like I said, I can't remember the name of which one, it was to rendezvous with a helicopter off of an aircraft carrier. Well, as you know, the longitude and latitude are really a pinpoint that small in the whole Pacific Ocean. Mm-hmm. So the submarine was where it was supposed to be, and the helicopter came over and it was where it was supposed to be, and the submarine surfaced with its periscope up in the air, stuck it right through the prop of the helicopter, and quite literally sunk the helicopter. Fortunately, the helicopter crew was safe.
After time in the service, many men came back hard of hearing.
Could actually be submerged and yet bring in fresh air. They had a big, huge snorkeling valve. It must have been maybe 2 feet across, and it would actually bring in fresh air. And we could run a couple engines off of it, and we could breathe fresh air. The problem is, in rough sea, every time this wave would hit the snorkeling valve, it had 3 solenoids, and the valve would close. Because obviously you don't want seawater in the submarine. Uh-huh. So the pressure in the submarine would go, it would change and just pressure your ears like you wouldn't believe. And a lot of fellas got headaches from it.
When he returned from the service, he was going to take advantage of the GI Bill to pay for his schooling. He also got a job working for Kaiser Steel Company. But in August of 1955, he had a bad diving accident and was not able to go to school or work. But this program later helped pay for his tuition at Valley College.
He then got a job at Pacific Telephone in June of 1955. He was able to get it due to his experience in electronics in the Navy.
He began dating a woman named Jan. He went to school with her older siblings, and this is how they met.
They got married in 1956, 2 days after she graduated high school. They had 2 sons, one of which is in the U.S. Air Force and is a helicopter pilot. They then moved to Redlands and have lived there for 40 years.
Don and Jan love to travel and have been to many places such as Australia, Ireland, Norway, and many other countries.
He is the chaplain for a submarine organization.
We went maybe 50 years before we saw each other, and then one guy decided to organize a reunion. And since then, we've had 4 reunions. A reunion in Pearl Harbor. There was only 7 of us show up there. Kansas City, Missouri, Reno, and San Diego and Branson, Missouri. So we've had 5 reunions.
They meet in Riverside and Redlands, and they meet once a month. The memory of submarine sailors that were lost.